You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Juniors podcast brought to you by NBA 2K23. And last night, LeBron James may or may not have broken a scoring record because BJ's going to the game, so we've got to record it beforehand. So we're going to imagine that he does score over 36 points and becomes the NBA's number one scorer, because if he does do it and we don't talk about it, that's the L. And if he doesn't do it, well, I guess on Friday when he breaks the record, you can come back here now, because 2 games is not going to make a difference to 38,000 points. BJ, right. Let's think for a second LeBron's broken a record. I wish I could ask you what it was like being in the arena, but I'll ask you that tomorrow. Talk to me about how historic this is, because Wilt took the record from, Kareem took the record from Wilt back in 1984. And since then, you've had a few players overtake Wilt Chamberlain. Of course, Michael Jordan finished with 41,010 points in his career. That's minutes. Excuse me.
Yes.
Michael Jordan. I was thinking for a second. Hold on, something's not right. Michael Jordan finished with 32,292. Dirk Nowitzki had 31,560. Kobe Bryant had 33,643, and Karl Malone had 36,928. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar obviously on 38,387. So LeBron James needed 36 points or more to break that record last night. And let's say he does it. What's your first thought running through your head? Or in fact, what are your thoughts now going to the game, ahead of the game? Did you think in 1984, when Kareem passed Wilt, that you would ever be seeing this in your lifetime?
Well, the longevity that it takes to do, to accomplish such a feat is incredible. Obviously it takes an enormous amount of talent. It takes luck, because you have to be healthy. But more importantly, to be able to play the game for this length of time, right? The longevity in which LeBron has played at this level, right? Yeah, you can argue maybe he wasn't the level, maybe he's not at 38, the level of athlete that he was at 28. You can argue all of those things. However, the parameters in which he'd been in for these last 20 years, that's a wild type of moment. You're watching a young man, come in. I remember watching this young man come in this league at about 18 years of age or so. And to watch him now and be able to sustain, this level of play, just from a numbers standpoint, right? Whether or not, you can argue all those things, but he's averaging what, 30 points a game? He's averaging right around
7.
Okay,
eight
so
rebounds,
you're watching. So you're watching someone individually perform at a very high level for this length of time. So it's a wild moment from that. Now, then you get into all those other things, which I'm not gonna touch today. I'm gonna allow LeBron to have his moment. Who's the greatest?
We're not doing that. We're not.
No, but what we are going to do is it's just to say, hey, this is an amazing achievement. I think we all should celebrate it. I think he should have his moment. This is his moment.
Yeah,
and it's a terrific accomplishment, because you're talking about. When you think of scoring, right, you think of like just phenomenal offensive players. You think of Kareem, you think of Jordan, you think of Karl Malone, you think of these players. And suddenly, I didn't never think of LeBron as a scorer. But when you begin to factor in the length of time that he's been scoring, 27 to 30 points a game for how long, the numbers add up. And certainly he's here at an amazing accomplishment. And, hopefully I'll be there. I'll be able to say I saw it in person, if he's able to do it tonight or Thursday night.
Well, you talk about the longevity. Now, the only players who have played more seasons than LeBron's obviously played 20. Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Garnett, Kevin Willis, and Robert Parrish played 21, and Vince Carter played 22. And when you watch LeBron right now, it looks like he could play at least 3 or 4 more seasons. He wants to play with his son and all of that kind of stuff. We've never seen a person in the NBA, in my opinion, at the age that LeBron is, 38 years old, with the amount of years that he's played. When we're talking about Kevin Garnett playing 21 seasons or Dirk Nowitzki playing 21 seasons, their final few years, they were clearly not the Kevin Garnetts and Dirk Nowitzkis that we knew in their primes. Whereas LeBron James, he might not be prime LeBron James, but he's still putting up 30 points a night. He's still carrying his team. He's still one of the most feared opponents in the NBA. If you're talking about, all right, you need one game and you have to put everything on the line, smart money might just be on LeBron. So for him to be producing at this level is, for me, the most impressive factor. Because, when we're talking about an accumulation stat, we're talking about, well, Kareem went to college, LeBron didn't. So he's obviously got a head start. Modern medicine and all of these kind of things, LeBron spends millions on his body every year. Fantastic. So obviously, over time, records are going to get broken and broken. But what LeBron has done is he's separated himself from not only the history books, but his peers as well. So LeBron, it sounds like, yeah, whatever, he only spends $1 million on his body every year. But why is everyone not doing that? Why is LeBron the one who's put a cryotherapy chamber in his house for recovery? And why is everyone not doing that? Why is LeBron studying the biomechanics of how he lands and how he jumps to preserve his knees and his back as he gets older? Why is everyone else not doing that? So credit is to LeBron's dedication as to being able to sustain this level of excellence. Add to the fact he had 8 straight season runs to the postseason, to the NBA Finals, which means he had far less time to recover than anyone else in those summers. He had almost no time off because you got to factor in all the other stuff he does for Nike and his movies and the Liverpool and all the other sponsors and things that he gets involved with. So really, he's managed to maintain, basketball aside, just as an athlete, to see this level of athlete at this age and this stage with this many miles on the clock. That's simply out of this world. I don't know if we're ever going to see an athlete like this ever again. Because even when you look at the numbers of what great players of this generation are doing, the Giannis's of the world and the Luka Doncic's of the world, I don't see a world where those guys break LeBron's record that he sets for scoring when it's all said and done. Because, like you said, it's like LeBron James, you can almost guarantee any night he goes out, he's going to get you 27 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. And we've not even spoke about the rest of his game because he's first in points, but he's also 4th in assists. So when you think about how many points he's generated with all of those assists, the sheer number of points generated is astronomical. And then the defensive side of the ball as well. In his prime, he was a fantastic defender. But credit to him. It's great to watch. BJ, how excited are you to go to the game in the Staples Center or the crypto thing that they call it now tonight?
Well, it's like I said, it's a fantastic achievement because of the length of time that he's been able to sustain this level of play. So anytime you can see a historical, a passing of the torch, if you will, a historical thing that we say, we'll never see it again. Well, history have taught us one thing: we will see it again. We will see someone surpass that. And, now we have a new barometer, if you will. All of these things, you talk about you talk about the technology now that guys have. It's just a matter of time as we continue to evolve. So, but the first thing, you got to have the physical ability to do these things, right? Just because you have all of, these resources available to you doesn't mean that you're going to be able to achieve his level of success. There's some physical ability that's just, you either you have it or you don't. Now, again, the one thing you want to applaud him is for being able to actually do it based on the gifts that, that you are giving or that you have. So, like I said, today is about him, or this week is about him. And I think it should be celebrated. I mean,
it's about him. It's about him unless Kevin Durant gets traded, and then we're all going to forget this and talk about Kevin Durant tomorrow. But it's all about him for tonight.
Yeah, it will be. And like I said, this is something you go like, wow, like I said, you'll see, like, when I think of the scoring, I think of like, a move, or you'll think of a particular shot.
This is what I was going to say.
You don't really have that with LeBron. You can't say, when you think of like the great scorers, you think of Kobe Bryant, or you think of Michael Jordan, or you think of Larry Bird, or you think of Karl Malone. LeBron James doesn't really have what I
does.
would consider a signature move.
His signature move is when he gets the ball and he spins it in his hand and he looks at it for a moment and he looks at it again and then he shoots. It's the funniest thing in the world, but it seems to work every single time. I think this is what I wanted to get onto, okay? Because when LeBron came in the league, he used his athleticism and obviously his natural talents to just bulldoze everyone or use his quickness to get around everyone, get to the bucket and lay it in or dunk, right? He wasn't known as a three-point shooter because this is the other thing. He's not known as a prolific three-point shooter. So to accumulate this many points, shout out to Kareem for only having scored one three-pointer in his career and holding the number one spot for so long. But LeBron's not known as a great three-point shooter, but he's up there. I think he's ninth all-time in threes made. He has developed his three-point shot because let's be honest, he wasn't a good shooter when he first came in. He wasn't known as even a good free throw shooter when he came in. And for me, it's the evolution on how he scored. It's him recognizing that the Spurs in the finals in 2007 are going to go under the screens on him. And that's why they win the finals. So he's going to go away and spend time working on his long distance shooting. Or it's the zone of the Dallas Mavericks and the physicality that they play with really give him trouble in 2011. So he goes away and calls Hakeem Olajuwon and says, teach me how to play in the post. And then he starts going to the post more often and using scoring moves over there. And then getting to the latter stages of his career, really refining it. And now he is taking more shots from the perimeter. But how have you seen LeBron's game evolve since he's come into the NBA in 2003?
Well, it's an interesting question. And, it's, it's very unfortunate, Mo, that I say unfortunate because when you play something or, I had the fortune of playing in that league at one time, it's hard for me to watch it and say, well, how has he evolved? The game is constantly evolving. And every year, Mo, whether there's a rule change, or there may be a shift in the paradigm, and, paradigm shifts happen, for instance, in LeBron James' career. When LeBron came into the league in the early 2000s, it was still a big man's league. And then suddenly around 2012 or so,
when Miami put Chris Bosh at the 5 and LeBron at the 4.
Yeah, well, I would say this. I think the paradigm shift that I'm referring to is 3-point shooting.
Okay.
Where everyone went to 3-point shooting, playing smaller bigs like a Chris Bosh. That was something that you would do. You may not have built your team around that, but you always, there was always a Dennis Rodman available. A Ben Wallace was available. There were guys who were 6'8", 6'9", playing that position, but you may not have built your team around that. Well, suddenly, when Steph Curry and these guys started shooting, right? All of a sudden, there was an idea maybe the 3-point line was going to make an effect, right? It wasn't adopted by everyone, but that was a shift in the game. The thing that I'm most impressed about with LeBron is how he has really adjusted his game as the game has changed, as the game has evolved. At one point, Mo, like I said, it was a big man's league where everyone played inside out. And suddenly LeBron was I don't know if he's a big guy or a little guy, but he's adjusted his game. At some point, he really imposed his will in the game because you referred to what he did exceptionally well, which is he could play downhill. I mean, we've never, in my opinion, a guy his size with his speed and ability. I mean, he's every bit 6'8", 6'9", 250, 260, play like this. You could say Charles Barkley, you could say some players, but the consistency in which he played downhill. He came into this league with a lot of accolades and a lot of expectations. Well, I think he, for the most part, has reached those expectations. And I would even argue he's probably surpassed many of the expectations of a young man with that much expectations and pressure that, that he so deservingly, he achieved those things. Now, watching him today, I never would have imagined or thought because I watched him in high school, I never would have thought that I would see him make 7, 8,
20 years
9.
later.
yeah, 7, 8, 9 threes in the game. But I never imagined that the game would be a game now where it's an outside in game. Okay, I never would have thought that. So to watch him adapt and watch him play now a game where it was about possessions and half court offense to where now, Mo, we're playing a game where it's pace and space. We're watching teams now, seems like every other night score 140, 150 points in the game. And LeBron is still playing. The thing that's most impressive about him now, Mo, is as you age, your game normally slows down. To watch LeBron James at 38 still play with speed, to me, is one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time, because he will still get to the basket. Not as frequently as he did, but he will still do it. He will still get out in transition and dunk. He will still, from time to time, get out in the passing lanes. And that, to me, is what always makes me smile. I'll be like, oh, that's pretty impressive. Like, I know
he's running the young guys off the court
things.
sometimes. You know, he said in the interview the other
me.
day, he's jumping higher than 21-year-olds. He's running faster than 23-year-olds. Like, it's unheard of. I want to ask you this, BJ, because it was 20 years ago that LeBron came into the league. Now, believe it or not, I was only 8 or 9 years old at that time. So as long as I've been watching the NBA, LeBron James has been there, right?
Right.
But from your perspective,
that's
there was
funny.
so much hype around LeBron when he was coming in. They were calling him the chosen one. They were saying it's the next MJ, the next this, the next that. He's managed to have a fantastic career, exceeding expectations. You know, and he's managed to stay kind of scandal free, which is rare for famous people these days. But how much pressure was on LeBron when he was coming into the NBA? What was everyone saying? Because we talk about Wembanyama all the time here on this show. But what was the hype like for LeBron James when he was coming into this league?
Well, you know, I think it was deserving, you know, and the reason is because every now and then you will see players, you know, every 25 or 30 years, you will see a player with this level of attention. Okay. Like, I wasn't there to see Wilt, but it was an obvious if you saw a young Wilt Chamberlain. It was obvious when you saw a young Kareem. It was obvious when you saw a young Magic Johnson. You know, these aren't the, you know, but you don't see them often. But when you do see them, it's very obvious. Now, for all of us who saw LeBron, I saw LeBron James play as a freshman in high school. I think it's St. Vincent. I think that's the high school.
St. Vincent, St. Mary's in Akron, Ohio.
Yeah. I saw him play as I was a young executive at the time. And Mo, it wasn't like could be, ought to be. He was like, oh, wow, this is something a little different. Okay. You saw a kid who was about 6'7" at the time or so. And he was like 225 pounds as a freshman in high school. Mo, it wasn't like,
that's a grown man body. That ain't a high school.
Yeah. It wasn't like, you know, you had to like take a double take. It was, you know what I mean? It's just like watching Victor Wembanyama. It's not like you have to like say, well, maybe he can't play. You're like, oh, I don't see this often.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the hype train, if you will, probably, you know, loves to, you know, stretch it a little bit. However, the thing that was most impressive was it was obvious. You know, a great scout always says, you know, you got to be the master of the obvious. It was obvious when you saw him as a freshman in high school that this young man had a chance. Why? Because you were seeing something, a young man that was built, and you're going, wow, you know, he may be the size of a Karl Malone, but he puts it on the floor. You know, you just knew that it was going to be different.
Like when you look at like LeBron is obviously a much bigger player who can pass the ball, right? So you think Magic Johnson with his passing ability, but Magic could never jump out of gym like LeBron. So when you think about people that can jump like Sean Kemp with that kind of build, Sean Kemp couldn't pass like LeBron. So the fact that he takes all of these different skills and can do almost everything, what is there on the basketball court that he can't do?
Well, you know, again, you know, people compare the numbers, okay? Like when I saw LeBron, when I saw him, I said, I see a young man who really was playing he could play in every phase of the game. Okay.
Yeah.
Is he the greatest passer I've ever seen? No. When I think of passing, as far as playing and managing time and score and all those things, no one did it better than Magic. You know, people will say, well, he passed the ball. No, he didn't pass it like Magic. But he could do a lot of different things. Magic, when Magic gets the ball, he's looking to pass it. LeBron has options. He can go over the top of you if he desires. He can go around you. He could go through you. He could pass the ball. But Magic managed the game in a way. It's a different game.
How do you feel about LeBron saying, I was never meant to break the scoring record. I'm a pass first player?
That's fine. Whatever. Listen, he has the right to feel however. What I learned being around great players is the game always dictated what they should do. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like the basketball gods, if you will, gave them a sense to say whatever was necessary at that particular moment, I was going to do, right? If the moment said I was supposed to score, you score. If the moment said I was supposed to pass, I pass. If the moment said I was supposed to pull up, you pull up. So that's the one thing I learned from great players is that they were prepared for whatever happened. So if he feels that he's okay, that's great. I don't have a problem with that. And just being around these amazing players, there's a common theme is that they allow the game to always dictate what should be done at any given moment. So I admire what LeBron has done because he's done all of these things in a game now where truly now you're seeing players be able to do a lot of different things. Where before, if you were 6'8" or 6'9", you were a power forward. Well, suddenly Magic came along and said, "Oh, I can be a point guard," and that opened up a new realm of thinking. When I watch players today, Mo, we're watching 7-footers shoot threes like I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're watching LeBron shoot threes like I never. So all of the fact that he's been able to touch every phase of the game, to me, is probably what his versatility to me is probably his gift, because he does a little bit of he can touch every phase of the game, and he does it at a very high level. It's not like he's a jack of all trades and he's just he can just do it. He could arguably, if he just probably concentrated on scoring, he probably could have scored a lot more points. He would have passed
the record already if he just focused on scoring.
If he wanted to be a great rebounder, he probably could have, he probably will be in the top 5 or top 10. Or if he just said he wanted to be a scorer, because, with his size, he could catch the ball and demand a double team and do all those things. So, again, watching how he's been able to have an impact on the game speaks for itself and what he's been able to do. And I think we should just admire who he is. I don't know if pass first is right or shoot first is right. But what I do know is that when it's all said and done, statistically, he will be up there with the greatest to ever do it. Okay. And that's a phenomenal achievement, and give him his credit. That, like I said, I want to just celebrate for who he is, not who I wanted him to be, but for who he is. And that's LeBron James.
Shout out to LeBron James. Let me ask you this one question, BJ. Which season of LeBron's 20-year career did we see the best version of LeBron? If you could go back and pick one season of LeBron at his peak, which one season stood out to you the most?
Well, it's 20 seasons. I would have to really look at it. But you know what? What's really stood out to me is, like I said, his career has stood out to me. That's what's really, and the reason I say that is because now I am in my 50s and I have kids. And to think that this young man, it's like I watched him grow up. I watched him get married. I watched him have kids. Now I'm watching his kids about to go to college. I've watched the highs of his career. I've watched the lows of his career. I've watched where LeBron James, when he first came to the league, he didn't get to the playoffs. I remember when he first got to the NBA Finals and he got swept. Then I watched him
lose to Dallas,
lose
after running,
pick himself back up. Then I watched him go down there to Miami and figure out how to win. And I remember him winning his first championship. I remember him going back to Cleveland and figuring that out. And now I'm watching this rendition of him in LA and watching him at this stage of his career. So his career stands out to me is because, I mean, it's been a 20-year run. It's not like, a 10-year run would be incredible. Mo, you have a 10, 11-year run. That's like a wow, right? You know what I mean? This guy's had a 20-year run and he's still doing it. And he's still an all-star. He's
going out there and he's dropping 30 on the heads of players whose dads he also dropped 30 on 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's really so, his longevity and his persistence of being able to do this over and over again. This isn't easy, as you age, and I'm sure he's doing whatever he has to do. At one point he probably could just come to the gym like we all could, put on our shoes and go play. Now he probably has to work a lot harder or harder than he's ever been to be LeBron James.
Yeah.
Because of the recovery time that's necessary. So his career stands out to me because I've had a chance to watch this young man grow up. I mean, think about it. When he first came in, he was a high school kid. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now
those Cleveland teams were bad as well that he was on. I mean, that first run in Cleveland, they weren't very good teams.
Well, I guess, I grew up in an era where you say you're only as good as your best player. Right? You're only as good as your best player. And that's the era that I grew up in. So if you're going to be the best player, you have to take responsibility for that team. And, he was learning at 18, what were we expecting? Like, I just think for him to be able to grow and mature and ascend to the player he has become, just speaks about him and his fight and will to keep pushing no matter what.
I think one thing that I want to say from my perspective is as LeBron James's career has progressed, the internet has progressed. And the reason why I bring that up is there is all the pressure of the world because now everyone sees everything. Everyone is constantly a 24-hour news cycle. Every single thing's being reported on. Everyone's now got a voice. Everyone's now got an opinion. And you could see earlier in his career that it would maybe sometimes get to him. And you watched him grow and develop and tune out the noise and become so resilient he could go out there and just win. Because as tough as it was playing in other eras, there wasn't social media in other eras. There wasn't all of these, the talk shows that almost every channel has now and they have all over the internet. So for him, to be performing at his level consistently throughout his career, shout out to him because he's given so many people a career. There are people out there in the media who talk about LeBron James every single day. And I'm pretty sure if there was no LeBron James, those guys wouldn't be on the TV. So shout out to LeBron. He broke the record last night. And if he didn't break the record last night, he'll break it in his next game. And you can come back to this podcast and listen to it again after that because BJ is going to be in the arena. So obviously we can't record. Unfortunately, my invitation to the game must have got lost in the post because I'm still sat here in England. I mean, I'm not sure what happened on that one, B, but maybe next time.
I got to check the mail, Mo. I got to check the mail. I got to check it. I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it's there.
I heard the mailman ain't delivering since he's going from 3rd to 4th on the list.
Okay.
But it's going to be a historic night. Congratulations to LeBron James. BJ, enjoy the game. You guys, I hope you all enjoyed watching. It's weird recording this before the game and releasing it after the game. I don't really know how to sign it off. The only way I know how to sign this off is make sure you subscribe to the podcast because the rest of LeBron's career and the young players that are coming up that may someday beat his record or come close to his record, we're going to be providing you with everything you need to know about them the whole way through. So stay subscribed to the podcast, 5-star reviews everywhere, subscribe, tell a friend, all that good stuff. And just like Mr. LeBron James, get buckets.